caring for the children of Abraham. Chapter 3. In the high desert hills, trees were planted and homes were built. There was a sense of being suddenly a part of the history of Israel, very old of childhood Bible stories and this that was happening. Hadassah was set in the hills, and we drove into the parking lot near the hospital temple. There was a small break in the pavement where an artillery shell had exploded. The only damage had been to cars parked there and the temple windows. The hospital was full. It was one of Israel's premier hospitals. It had a medical school and multidisciplinary postgraduate medical surgical training programs. The chief of surgery was an American from New York with dual citizenship. The patients were all lodged together. Wounded Arab and Israeli soldiers were side by side. There were non-combatants and civilian patients, both Arab and Jew, with and without war wounds. There were the shattered Marc Chagall stained glass window panes of the hospital temple, broken early in the war by an artillery shell lobbed over the hospital into the parking lot from a Jordanian battery. The artillery piece, like all that fire on Israel, was quickly silenced. Marc Chagall sent a message, "I'll make more windows, save Israel." The anesthesia department was run by a lady doctor whose name I can't remember, a politically strong chief, an invaluable asset, and by Terry Davidson, a friendly, passionate, hands-on teacher-clinician. Ben Aronson, anesthesiologist, friend, and chest surgeon Tom Borman. They were staff doctors who had immigrated from South Africa. Everyone reached out and made me feel a part of the team. In the beginning, many of the hospital staff were mobilized with their military units. Much of the war moved too fast to set up mobile units, but good triage, the priority of care when a number of patients need attention, and acute care saves lives. The distances involved in tiny Israel make medical evacuation within her borders top of the line. The first evening at Hadassah, after I had presented my papers, been accepted, and suited up for the OR, I was allowed to supervise some of the young pharmacy students who were acting as wartime physician-supervised anesthetists. They were bright kids trained to provide anesthesia in a disaster. I remember in one OR, the pharmacy student doing the anesthetic was putting a young soldier to sleep who had taken a machine gun round to his abdomen. The x-ray showed the round high in the abdomen entering from the front, lodged just short of the vertebra. There was little bleeding. He was in pain. We tried to reassure him and put him to sleep using a rapid induction technique, pressure on the cricoid ring against the cervical vertebra to close the esophagus after pre-oxygenation of his lungs, sleep with pentothal, paralysis with succinylcholine for introduction of the endotracheal tube. Tucked under the patient's pillow was a suction trocar to remove food and blood if he vomited. It was a two-man operation to do it properly. Aspiration of stomach contents is a deadly possibility in emergency surgery. We had a large bore intravenous line in each arm. Anesthetic induction went well. We secured the endotracheal tube at the mouth with tape above the lip and around the cheek, and then we inserted an oral airway bite block. We began maintenance endotracheal anesthesia using a mixture of nitrous oxide, oxygen, and a halogenated hydrocarbon halothane, a volatile liquid anesthetic administered as a gas through the lungs, plus a neuromuscular blocking agent, a chemical that blocks a nerve impulse of muscle contraction. I believe we used galamine. We also had succinylcholine drips and detubo-curare. The muscle relaxant or neuromuscular blocking agent allows the anesthetist to run a lighter anesthetic and still provide muscle relaxation for adequate surgical exposure. The alternative is deep anesthetic with greater physiologic compromise. We told the surgeon to start. The abdomen was open. There was little damage to the bowel. The liver, spleen, kidneys, and pancreas were not damaged. It looked like this kid was lucky. Probably a spent bullet. He would live. We thought how lucky he was. The surgeon found the bullet high in the abdomen in the midline near the diaphragm. You could see it sitting there pulsating, brass unspoiled, next to the aorta. The surgeon pulled the bullet out with a ring clamp. The bullet came out easily. It was followed by a spurt of bright red blood that went as high as the surgeon's chest. The open abdomen quickly filled with blood. The patient's blood pressure dropped. While one of us pushed fluid and blood through the IVs in the arm, the other raced to start IVs at the ankles. There was blood on the floor now. We could not give volume fast enough. The surgeon could not control the bleeding. The boy died in a few moments. We went on to the next case. To be continued.